So over the weekend, I had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and I'm happy to share it with you all. Hello, Maddie. Thank you for having a conversation with me. Can you please introduce yourself?
So my name is Maddie or Madeline. I am an American here in France. I grew up the first part of my life, was born and grew up the first part of my life in Latin America, in a couple countries. And then I moved to the US, grew up there, graduated high school, took a gap year, started school in the US, stopped doing that, worked for a bit, and then I came here to France in 2019 and I started my bachelor's. So that was like, I did my 3 years of my bachelor's, and now I'm here in my first year of my master's in business development.
So you were born in Latin America and grew up in the US, and now you are in Europe pursuing your bachelor's and master's. Tell me about this experience.
I think what I would say is I don't feel fully any culture. I don't feel like I belong in any culture. Yeah, I never, when I'm in the US, I don't feel American. When I'm in Latin America, I don't feel Latina, even though I was born there and lived some part of my life there. When I'm in Europe, obviously don't feel European, don't feel French. But I think I'm just used to not feeling like I belong to the culture. So I think that when I thought about moving to France, yes, it was intimidating. Yes, it was kind of scary. But in essence, it's just me going to another place where I don't feel like I necessarily belong to the culture.
I've heard you speak French a couple of times, and I think you are quite fluent in it. How did you learn to speak French?
Watch TV shows. I spent my first year with the host family, and then because COVID hit, I spent the first confinement with them, and then I was stuck in France because I couldn't go back or I would lose my visa, so I spent the whole summer working at a French summer camp. And then during the year, honestly, for studies, so much of it is in English, but I go to a church that's in French. The next summer I did my internship in French, then I did work in French. So it was really just the immersion into just being like, okay, I'm not gonna understand anything, but let's go. I'm gonna learn this language, and TV shows and stuff, or audios. I like re-listening to books that I already know in English, and I listen to them in French.
Can you tell me about your work experience and how that has impacted your life?
So I don't have a ton of professional experience. I guess I'll start with volunteer experience. So during my gap year, I did Bible school, and part of that was a service. Like half of that was service. And so we were in Greece, in Lebanon, and Egypt, and we were teaching English to refugees who were trying to seek asylum in English-speaking countries. And then in Greece, we worked in a refugee camp called Moria Refugee Camp. And so I was part of the housing team, so that meant the new arrivals that arrived on the boats, because this is on an island called Lesbos, which is right off of the coast of Turkey. So this is where, if you look on the news, this is where you see all the boats with the refugees coming over. That's the island they come to. So the new arrivals are literally people who just got off the boat overnight. And it was assigning them to a place to live in camp. So I was part of that team working with that. And then I've worked a series of administrative jobs, student academic advising. I did a recruitment job for a French school in Morocco during my bachelor's. That was an internship, actually. And then this past year, I worked as a secretary in a student residence here in France. So how did my time impact me? I think there's a couple of things. I think it was an extremely humbling experience. It doesn't mean I haven't seen suffering in my own country. It doesn't mean I haven't seen suffering in my own life. But when you see people experiencing that extent of pain, that extent of injustice, it's hard to see, especially when I have so much privilege. So I think it was extremely humbling and made me just think, Maddie, literally stop thinking you know things, because you don't. You have no idea the experience of others, and all you can do is sit here and learn. So it just impacted, I think, my view on, on myself of Maddie, stop thinking you're the center of the world, because you are not at all. And I think also just, impacted me. I want to be as hospitable as these people, despite the pain that they're suffering. They're living in tents of 16 meters squared, and there's 16 people living in that. It's literal hell. It is hell on earth. And, we had someone who came and was like, oh yeah, this is probably one of the worst refugee camps I've ever seen. And they work in refugee camps all around the world. And I was like, I don't know, it literally was hell on earth. And how do you actually work through that? How do you see that and see your privilege, and seeing these people who are still extremely hospitable? They're like, come in, have tea with me. And you don't speak their language, but they're just happy to be with you. And just such joy that goes beyond anything that makes any sense in a place like that. I think just like the hospitality, like I want to be like them. They're amazing beyond amazing, and yeah, just I don't know. It's just in 3 bullet points. It was humbling. It was encouraging to see the resilience of people, and I think it taught me a lot about hospitality in the midst of suffering.
So what advice would you give to your younger self, Maddie?
Stop trying to plan everything. I like to control what's going to happen, but I think like through all my decisions of I'd move here, I'd stay here, do this studies, I think I just wanted to know how everything was going to end up, and I think that caused me a lot of like stress that was unnecessary. So honestly, just stop, and so many random opportunities are going to come up that you don't even imagine. So don't plan, and stop obsessing over having a passion. I think growing up, everyone's like, do your passion for work, do this for work. Shut up. I'm sorry. Maybe there's a select few people in this world who have very, very clear passion. There are many things that I like, and I'm just going to try doing those, and I enjoy doing those, even though they're not, quote, a passion. Ugh. Just let go of that word.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Maddie. And thank you also for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Watch out for our next episode, which comes out next week. Until then,